I found out my wife was cheating on me because of a grocery receipt. Not a text message. Not a lipstick stain. A damn receipt crumpled at the bottom of her purse like it didn't matter. Like we didn't matter. It was a Tuesday in late October, one of those gray, quiet afternoons in Columbus where the sky hangs low and everything feels unfinished. I had gotten home early from work. Construction got shut down because of rain, and I figured I'd surprise Lisa by making dinner. She loved when I cooked, said it made her feel taken care of, though lately she hadn't been saying much of anything at all. Her purse was sitting on the kitchen counter. Brown leather, worn at the edges. I wasn't snooping. I swear to God, I wasn't. I was just looking for her grocery list because I planned to run to the store. That's when I saw it. The receipt. 2 steaks. Expensive ones. A bottle of red wine I knew damn well we couldn't afford right now. And then, what hit me hardest? Chocolate-covered strawberries. Lisa hated strawberries. I just stood there, staring at that paper like it was written in a foreign language. My brain tried to make sense of it, to build some innocent explanation. Maybe it was for a friend. Maybe she was trying something new. Maybe I was overthinking. But something deep in my gut twisted hard. We hadn't had steaks in months. We'd been arguing about bills just last week. She told me we needed to cut back, that things were tight. Yet here was proof she'd spent more on one dinner than we'd spent on groceries all week. And not with me. I remember the silence in that kitchen, the hum of the fridge, the ticking clock on the wall. It all felt louder than it should have, like the world was leaning in, waiting for me to catch up. Then I noticed the time on the receipt. 7:42 p.m. Last Friday. She told me she was working late that night. I sat down at the table, still holding that receipt, and for the first time in 10 years of marriage, I felt like a stranger in my own life. Like I'd missed something important, something right in front of me, and now it was too late to pretend everything was okay. I didn't call her, didn't text. I just sat there, letting the realization sink in, piece by piece, like cold water filling my lungs. Something had changed, and deep down, I think I already knew what it was. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a minute. Lisa got home around 9:15 p.m., shaking rain off her coat, like nothing in the world had changed. She smiled at me, casual, warm, practiced. The kind of smile I used to trust without question. "Hey," she said, dropping her keys into the ceramic bowl by the door. "You're home early." I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yeah, rain shut us down." She walked past me, brushing my shoulder lightly. That small touch, it used to mean something. Now it felt like a stranger passing by in a crowded bar. "Did you eat?" she asked, already heading toward the fridge. "No," I said. "Was waiting for you." That wasn't true, but I needed to see how she'd react. She hesitated, just for a second, but I saw it. "Oh, I grabbed something earlier," she said, not turning around. "Long day, you know." There it was. Another small lie, tossed out like it didn't weigh anything. I watched her as she moved around the kitchen, opening cabinets, avoiding eye contact. 10 years together teaches you a person's rhythms, the pauses, the glances, the things they don't say. And suddenly, everything felt off. "Work busy?" I asked. "Yeah," she said quickly. "End-of-month stuff. You wouldn't believe the paperwork." I almost laughed. Lisa worked in a dental office. There was no end-of-month madness. Not like that. But I didn't push. Not yet. We sat down on the couch later, some random show playing in the background. I couldn't tell you what it was. My mind kept replaying the receipt. The strawberries. The timestamp. 7:42 p.m. While I was at home, eating leftovers alone, thinking my wife was stuck at work, she was somewhere else. With someone else. "Everything okay?" she asked suddenly. I blinked. "Yeah. Why?" "You're quiet." I shrugged. "Just tired." She studied me for a moment. I thought, just for a split second, that she might say something. Confess. Crack under the weight of whatever she'd been hiding. But she didn't. She leaned her head on my shoulder instead. And I froze. Because all I could think about was whether she had leaned that same way against someone else just days ago. Later that night, when she fell asleep beside me, I stared at the ceiling, listening to her breathing. Steady, peaceful, unaffected. I turned my head slightly and looked at her. The same woman I had married. The same face I had memorized over the years. But something was different now. Or maybe it was me who had finally changed. Around 2 a.m., I got out of bed quietly and walked back into the kitchen. The receipt was still where I left it, folded in half on the table like evidence waiting to be processed. My hands felt cold as I picked it up again. This time, I noticed something I'd missed before. At the very bottom, beneath the total, table for two. Not takeout. Not groceries. A restaurant. And suddenly, the story in my head wasn't a suspicion anymore. It was a timeline, and I was ready to follow it. By morning, I had a plan. Not a good one. Not a smart one. But it was something to hold on to. Something that kept me from unraveling completely. Because if I just sat there, letting the questions eat me alive, I knew I'd either explode or break. Lisa left for work around 8:10 a.m., same as always. Same routine. Same kiss on the cheek before heading out the door. "See you tonight," she said. I forced a smile. "Yeah, tonight." The moment her car pulled out of the driveway, the house felt different. Too quiet. Like it was holding its breath. I grabbed my keys and the receipt. The restaurant name was printed at the top, Maple and Vine. I had never heard of it, which made it worse, because it meant she had a whole part of her life I knew nothing about. The drive across Columbus felt longer than it actually was. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. Every red light felt like an accusation. Every second gave my mind more time to imagine things I didn't want to see. When I finally pulled up, I almost missed it. Maple and Vine wasn't some fancy downtown spot. It was tucked away on a quiet street, the kind of place you'd only know if someone told you about it. Brick walls, soft lighting, intimate, a place for dates. Of course it was. I sat in the car for a minute, staring at the entrance. People walked in and out like it was just another day, like nothing in the world was falling apart. Then I got out. Inside, it smelled like coffee and fresh bread. Warm, comfortable, the kind of place that makes you forget about everything else. A hostess greeted me with a polite smile. "Table for one." Actually," I said, pulling out the receipt, trying to keep my voice steady. "I was here Friday night. I think I left something behind." That was a lie, but it was the best I had. She glanced at the receipt, then back at me. "Do you remember where you were seated?" I shook my head. "Not really. Somewhere in the back, I think." Another lie. She hesitated, then nodded. "Let me check with our manager." I waited near the entrance, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Every second stretched out, heavy and slow. Then a man in his 40s came out. Clean shirt, calm eyes. The kind of guy who notices details. "I'm Mark," he said. "You said you were here Friday?" "Yeah," I replied. "Around 7:30. He looked at the receipt again. Then something shifted in his expression. Not obvious, but enough. "Were you dining alone?" he asked. There it was. The question. The moment everything balanced on a knife's edge. I swallowed hard. Because I knew, whatever I said next would decide how much of the truth I was about to uncover. And I wasn't sure I was ready for it. "No," I said. The word came out before I could stop it. Mark didn't react right away, but I saw it. The subtle shift in his posture, the way his eyes focused just a little sharper. Like a man who just found the missing piece to a puzzle he didn't even know he was solving. "I was with my wife," I added, forcing the sentence out like it physically hurt. "I think she might have left something behind." That part wasn't entirely a lie. He studied me for a second longer than felt comfortable. Then he nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "Give me a moment." He disappeared into the back. And just like that, I was alone again, with my thoughts, my heartbeat, and the quiet certainty that I had just stepped past a line I couldn't come back from. I wasn't here to find something she forgot. I was here to prove something she was hiding. A couple walked past me, laughing softly, their hands brushing against each other like it was the most natural thing in the world. I looked away, because just a few days ago, that could have been us. Or maybe it hadn't been us for a long time. Maybe I just didn't notice when it stopped. "Sir." I turned. Mark was back. But now he wasn't alone. A waitress stood beside him, mid-20s, blonde hair tied back, apron still on. She looked at me with that same polite expression, but there was something else underneath it. Recognition. And that's when my stomach dropped. "This is Emily," Mark said. "She was working Friday night." Of course she was. Emily gave me a small, hesitant smile. "Hi," she said. "You said you were here with your wife?" I nodded, unable to speak for a second. She looked at the receipt, then back at me. And then she hesitated. It was quick. Most people wouldn't notice. But I did, because I'd been watching for hesitation all week. "I remember this table," she said slowly. "The order matches." My chest tightened. "Okay," I managed. "So you remember us?" Another pause. Longer this time. And then she said something that split everything wide open. "I remember the woman," Emily said carefully. "Not you. The woman." I felt like the floor shifted under me. And the man she was with. There it was. No confusion. No doubt. No room left for excuses. Just truth. Clean and sharp. I swallowed hard, my mouth suddenly dry. "Did you recognize him?" I asked. Mark glanced at Emily, like he was giving her a choice. She looked back at me, and for a second, I saw something in her eyes that made this even worse. Sympathy. "I think so," she said quietly. "He's been here before." Of course he had. This wasn't new. This wasn't a mistake. This was a pattern. "Do you know his name?" I asked, even though part of me didn't want to hear it. Emily hesitated again, looked at Mark. Mark sighed slightly, then nodded. That was all the permission she needed. She turned back to me and said the name. And the second I heard it, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel shock. I felt something worse. Recognition. Because I knew exactly who he was. Daniel. That was the name. And the second it left her lips, something inside me didn't just break, it collapsed. Daniel Harper. Not a stranger. Not some random guy from a bar or a co-worker I'd never met. Daniel was my neighbor. Worse than that, he was my friend. He lived 2 houses down from us on the same quiet street in Columbus. We'd shared beers on summer evenings, stood side by side grilling burgers while our lawns filled with the smell of charcoal and cheap laughter. He'd helped me fix the fence last spring. I'd helped him move a couch into his basement. I knew his dog's name. He knew my wife's birthday. And now I knew he knew her a little too well. I don't remember thanking Emily. I don't remember walking out of that restaurant. One second I was standing there, trying to process the name, and the next, I was sitting in my truck, hands gripping the wheel so hard it felt like the only thing keeping me grounded. Daniel. It replayed in my head like an echo that wouldn't die. Every moment we'd spent together started shifting, twisting into something darker. The casual conversations. The jokes. The way he'd look at Lisa sometimes. Had there been something there all along? Or was I just blind? I hit the steering wheel once. Not hard. Just enough to feel something real. Damn it. I muttered under my breath. Because now it wasn't just betrayal. It was humiliation. They hadn't just lied to me. They'd done it right under my nose. In my house. On my street. In the life I thought we were all sharing. I drove home slower than I should have, my mind running faster than the car. Every turn felt automatic. Muscle memory. I barely remember the road. But I remember pulling into the driveway and seeing his house. 2 doors down. Same as always. Nothing looked different. That was the worst part. The world hadn't changed. Only the truth had. I sat there for a long time, engine still running, staring at that house like it might give me answers if I looked hard enough. Did it start recently? Or had it been going on for months? Had he been in my home after I left for work? Had she laughed with him the same way she used to laugh with me? I shut the engine off. Silence filled the car instantly. And in that silence, a decision started forming. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just clear. I wasn't going to confront her right away. Not yet. Because if there was one thing I understood now, it was this. I didn't know the full story. And I needed to. Every detail. Every lie. Every moment they thought I'd never find out. So instead of storming into the house, instead of calling her, instead of driving over and knocking on Daniel's door, I reached for my phone. And I checked our home security app. Because for the first time in 10 years, I realized I might have been living in a lie. But that lie had left traces. And I was done ignoring them. The app took a second to load. That spinning circle on the screen felt longer than anything I'd ever waited for. My thumb hovered just above the display, like I could stop what was coming if I didn't touch it. But I already knew. Or at least, I thought I did. Still, knowing something in your gut and seeing it with your own eyes, those are 2 very different things. The home screen came up, 4 camera feeds. Front door, backyard, garage, living room. Everything looked normal. Too normal. I tapped the living room feed first. Empty couch. TV off. Curtains half drawn. Just the quiet, still image of a house that looked exactly like mine, but suddenly didn't feel like it anymore. Then I hit history. Scrolled back. Friday, 7:30 p.m. My finger hesitated again. Then I pressed play. At first, nothing. The room sat there, frozen in that same lifeless calm. Then, movement. The front door camera lit up in the corner preview. I switched to it. And there she was. Lisa. Laughing. Not the tired, distant version of her I'd been living with lately. No, this was different. Light. Easy. Alive. She stepped inside, shaking off her coat, turning slightly. And then he walked in behind her. Daniel. Like he belonged there. Like he'd done it before. My chest tightened so fast I had to lean back in the seat. They didn't rush. Didn't sneak. They moved like people who were comfortable. Familiar. She said something. I couldn't hear it, but I saw her smile. That same smile she used to give me when we first got married. The one that made everything feel simple. He laughed. Then he reached for her. And she didn't pull away. I stopped the video. My hand was shaking now. I stared at the screen, frozen on that moment. His hand on her arm, her body leaning just slightly toward him. That tiny detail. That was enough. I didn't need to see more. But I watched anyway. Because once you open that door, you don't get to close it halfway. I pressed play again. They moved into the living room. Sat on the couch. Too close. Talking. Comfortable. Like this wasn't new. Like this wasn't wrong. Like I didn't exist. Minutes passed. Then, he kissed her. Not hesitant. Not uncertain. Confident. And she kissed him back. Just like that. 10 years. Reduced to a moment on a screen. I paused it again, but this time I didn't look away. I forced myself to see it. To understand it. Because this wasn't suspicion anymore. This wasn't a possibility. This was reality. Clear. Undeniable. Permanent. I leaned my head back and closed my eyes. And for the first time since all of this started, I felt calm. Not because it hurt less, but because the question was gone. No more maybe. No more what if. Just truth. Cold and sharp. I opened my eyes again. Looked at the house. Then at Daniel's place down the street. And I realized something that changed everything. They thought they were being careful. They thought I'd never know. But they made one mistake. They got comfortable. And now, so was I? I didn't confront her that night. Or the next. Instead, I watched. Not like some paranoid husband losing his mind, but like a man finally paying attention. Every movement. Every word. Every silence between us. And once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. Lisa was different. Not in obvious ways. That's what made it worse. She still made coffee in the morning. Still asked about my day. Still kissed me goodbye like nothing had changed. But now I could see the gaps. The delays in her replies. The way she checked her phone and turned the screen away just slightly. The nights she said she was too tired, but somehow still had energy for something else. Or someone else. I didn't say a word. Because I wasn't building a reaction. I was building a moment. 3 days later, Friday came again. Same time. Same rhythm. Working late, she said, grabbing her coat. I nodded. Yeah. Figured. She paused. Just for a second. Everything okay? She asked. I looked at her. Really looked this time. And for the first time in years, I didn't see my wife. I saw someone I didn't know. Yeah, I said calmly. Everything's fine. She studied my face, like she was trying to read something. But there was nothing left to read. I had already closed that part of myself off. She left. I waited 10 minutes. Then I grabbed my keys. The drive to Columbus felt different this time. Not heavy. Not chaotic. Focused. I didn't go to the restaurant. I didn't need to. I already knew where they'd be. I pulled up near Daniel's house and parked just far enough not to be obvious. Lights on. Of course. I sat there, engine off, watching the front door. And then, her car. She didn't hesitate. Didn't look around. She just parked. Got out. Walked straight up to his door. And knocked. Like she belonged there. The door opened almost immediately. He was expecting her. Of course he was. She stepped inside. The door closed. And just like that, it was real in a way nothing else had been before. Not a video. Not a receipt. Not a name. This. Right in front of me. I sat there for a long time. No anger. No shouting. No dramatic confrontation. Because here's the truth no one tells you about betrayal. The moment you know for sure, something inside you goes quiet. Not weak. Not broken. Just done. I started the engine. Put the car in reverse. And drove away. I didn't go home. Not right away. I drove past the places we used to go. The diner where we had our first date. The park where I proposed. The grocery store where none of this had existed yet. And somewhere between all of that, I made a decision. Not about them. About me. Because they had already made their choices. Now it was time to make mine. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of what came next. I didn't go home until after midnight. Not because I didn't have anywhere to go, but because I needed to understand who I was without that house, without her, without the version of my life I'd been holding on to like it was still real. I ended up parked outside a 24-hour diner on the edge of Columbus. The kind of place with flickering neon lights and coffee that tastes like it's been sitting on the burner all day. I used to hate places like that. That night, it felt right. I sat in a booth by the window, watching reflections more than the street itself. My phone buzzed once. Lisa, are you coming home? Just that. No concern. No explanation. No, where are you? Just routine. Like I was the one out of place. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back. Working late. I almost laughed after I sent it. Funny how easy it is to lie when you've finally stopped pretending the truth matters to the other person. The waitress came by, refilled my coffee without asking. I nodded a quiet thanks. Long night, she said. Yeah, I replied. Something like that. She didn't push. Just gave me that look people give when they know better than to ask questions. I appreciated that, because I finally had answers. And they weren't loud. They didn't come with some dramatic explosion or confrontation. They came quietly, in pieces, like this. She didn't just cheat. She replaced me. Not all at once. Not officially, but slowly, piece by piece. Emotion first, then attention, then time. And somewhere along the way, I became optional. That realization didn't make me angry. It made me clear. Around 1 a.m., I walked back to my truck and just sat there for a moment. No hesitation this time. No second guessing. Just decision. When I finally got home, the lights were off. Her car was in the driveway. Of course it was. I walked inside quietly. The house smelled the same. Looked the same. But it wasn't. Not anymore. She was asleep in the bedroom. Or pretending to be. I didn't check. Instead, I walked into the living room. Sat down on the couch. The same couch. And for a second, I saw it again, like a ghost burned into the air. Her. Him. That moment. But this time, it didn't hit the same way. Because now I understood something I hadn't before. That moment didn't define me. It defined them. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, and let out a slow breath. Tomorrow, I'd talk to her. Not to argue. Not to beg. Not to fix anything. Just to end it. Clean. Simple. Final. I stood up, turned off the hallway light, and paused for a second. 10 years. Gone. But strangely, I didn't feel empty. I felt lighter. Like I'd been carrying something heavy for a long time without realizing it. And now it was gone. I walked into the guest room instead of the bedroom, closed the door behind me, and for the first time in weeks, I slept. I woke up before the alarm. For a second, everything felt normal. The soft light through the curtains. The quiet hum of the house. That brief, fragile moment where your brain hasn't caught up with reality yet. Then it hit. Not like a shock. Not like pain. Just a fact. Today was the day. I got up, showered, got dressed like it was any other morning. Jeans. Work boots. Same routine. But inside, everything had shifted. When I walked into the kitchen, Lisa was already there. Coffee in hand. Hair still slightly messy like she had just woken up. She looked at me and smiled. Morning. That same smile. It didn't move me anymore. Morning. I replied calm. Too calm. She noticed. I saw it in the way her eyes narrowed just a little. You okay? She asked. There it was again. That question she'd been asking all week. But this time, I had an answer. Yeah, I said, pouring myself coffee. Actually, we need to talk. The air changed instantly. You could feel it. Like pressure before a storm. She didn't move at first. Then slowly, she set her cup down. Okay, she said asturna. I leaned against the counter, not sitting, not pacing. Just steady. I went to Maple and Vine, I said. No yelling. No emotion. Just truth. Her face didn't explode into panic. It didn't collapse. It did something worse. It froze. Like she was calculating. Like she was deciding which version of the story to tell. That told me everything. I saw the receipt, I added. I talked to the staff. Silence. Heavy. Thick. She swallowed. Okay, she said quietly. And I let out a slow breath. And I know about Daniel. That was it. That was the moment. Everything after that was just aftermath. Her eyes dropped. Not denial. Not confusion. Acceptance. And that hurt more than any lie could have. How long? I asked. My voice didn't shake. That surprised me. She didn't answer right away. Then, a few months. Months. Not weeks. Not a mistake. A choice. Repeated. Deliberate. I nodded slowly. Did you ever plan to tell me? She looked up at me then. And for the first time, there were tears. I didn't know how, she said. I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. You had time. I replied. You just didn't choose to. That landed. I saw it. She opened her mouth, like she wanted to say something else. Explain. Justify. Maybe even apologize. But I pudnil Ruku slightly. Not aggressive. Just enough. No, I said quietly. We're not doing that. She stopped. Because deep down, she knew. There wasn't anything left to fix. I'm not here to fight, I continued. And I'm definitely not here to compete. That one hit harder than anything else. Because it was true. This wasn't about winning her back. She was already gone. I'm done, Lisa. Simple. Clear. Final. She broke then. Tears falling freely now. Please, can we just... No. Not loud. Not angry. Just absolute. I shook my head. You made your decision, I said. Now I'm making mine. Silence filled the space between us again. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It was empty. And somehow, that felt better. I grabbed my keys from the counter. She didn't try to stop me. Didn't follow. Didn't argue. Because there was nothing left to hold on to. At the door, I paused. Not for her. For me. Then I opened it. And stepped outside. Into a life I didn't plan. Didn't expect. But for the first time in a long time. Was actually mine. I didn't go back. Not the next day. Not the week after. Not even when the messages started coming in. At first, they were simple. Can we talk? Then, please. Then long paragraphs. Apologies. Explanations. Regret wrapped in words that came too late to mean anything. I read them. All of them. But I never replied. Because closure isn't something someone gives you. It's something you decide. I moved into a short-term rental across town in Columbus. Small place. 1 bedroom. Bare walls. No shared memories. Exactly what I needed. The first few days felt strange. Not painful, just unfamiliar. Like wearing someone else's jacket. It fits, but it doesn't feel like yours yet. No coffee already brewing in the morning. No second toothbrush by the sink. No voice asking, what time will you be home? Just silence. But not the heavy kind I used to feel. This silence was clean, honest. And slowly, it became peaceful. I kept going to work. Kept my routine. Fixed things. Built things. Worked with my hands like I always had. Because that's what I understood. What I could control. And every day, it got a little easier to breathe. Daniel tried to talk to me once. I saw him across the street about a week later. He walked toward me like he had something to say. Something important. Maybe even something he thought I needed to hear. I didn't stop. Didn't slow down. Didn't even look at him. Because whatever he had to say didn't matter. Not anymore. Lisa kept texting for a while. Then calling. Then nothing. And that silence? That was the final confirmation. Not of what she did, but of who she was. Spring came early that year. Warmer days. Longer evenings. The kind of weather that makes people feel like starting over, even if they didn't plan to. One afternoon, I found myself back at that diner. Same booth. Same bad coffee. But everything felt different. I wasn't there to escape anything this time. I was just there. The waitress recognized me. Better night? She asked with a small smile. I nodded. Yeah, I said. Much better. And for the first time since all of this started. I meant it. I wasn't angry. I wasn't broken. And I wasn't looking back. Because the truth is, losing them didn't ruin my life. It revealed it. And once you see things clearly, you don't go back to pretending.